This step in our build is one of the most difficult and technical yet. Between our overhangs, 5.5 inches of insulation board, and 40-foot long metal panels, we had our work cut out for us. First thing in the morning, I got started prepping our overhangs. These are 2x6 pressure-treated boards that we are using to screw on top of our sheathing and into the trusses. It may seem a little off for us to add our overhangs after the fact, but when you're building a passive house, this is the best method. These overhangs get cut down to 6 feet, 4 foot on the roof and 2 foot hanging off. We cut them in such a way to allow our foam insulation to sit between and on top. This will make a lot more sense later in the video. And thankfully, Addie was there to give us some company. We had over 100 of these boards to trim, cut, and move on to the roof.
We are up on the roof today and we've got all of our boards for our overhangs up here, and now it's time for us to go ahead and install it. I've already installed 2 of them. You can see here that we have 4 foot of the board on the actual roof and then 2 foot off of the roof. We're using 6-inch structural lag screws to screw these in. That should hold really, really well. Well, we've made it to the end of this row on the high side. Now we're gonna go ahead and take a turn and go down. These are a little bit harder because I'm on a slope and they wanna turn on me. Well, that was a good first day. We got this side, we got the very front, and tomorrow morning, I'm gonna go ahead and do the bottom and then that side, and then we gotta do the corners. This is going really nicely. See you in the morning. Well, it's early in the morning the next day, and we're gonna keep going along, getting these overhangs on. Now we've got all of our overhangs except our corners, so that's what we gotta work on now. That's our last overhang getting screwed in. We're not done with the overhangs yet, so we'll square those off and then we'll cut off any excess because I left some extra. We're gonna have 1.5 inches of sub fascia, all that good stuff, but the overhangs are in and they're looking really good. So we've got our string line ran all the way around in all directions. We've got all of our corners squared, so we're looking really good. These green zip boards are gonna act as my scaffolding. When I'm working over the edge here, it's a little bit sketchy, so. On to the next one. Same for this one. These overhangs that you see right here are only about 24 inches out. By the time it's all said and done, we'll have about an 18-inch overhang with all the insulation on the walls and everything. But these outside corners, those extend a lot further. And so getting out there and cutting those is a little bit sketchy. So those are about 34 inches out. So here's where things get a little more tricky. This bottom end is where our gutter is gonna be. I need to cut these in such a way when we go to put our sub fascia on, it's sitting level. Well, it's time for us to start putting our sub fascia on, and because it's just me, I'm not gonna be able to hold this board out there and screw it at the same time. So I built some little blocks here, but these blocks should allow us to go just like that, and that should give us enough room to be able to screw this in and not fall over while I'm at it. I know it's more secure because of these boards, but it doesn't feel like it. And honestly, I'm not even really afraid of heights, but I'm putting a lot of trust into these overhangs. Oh yeah. Oh, we're on to our last corner here. Well, this roof system is really complex if you can't tell, but we got these overhangs on, we got our sub fascia on, and we are ready for foam. This right here took me about 3 days by myself. It was a lot of work. It was a lot of making sure we were nice and square, making sure everything looked good, because when you're driving up the road, this is the first thing you're gonna see is the back of the house. You see that right there? That right there is a ton of polyiso insulation, and we're up here on the roof this morning, and we need to lay all that down on our roof. That's gonna be our exterior insulation. This is all of the insulation that we're gonna need for not only the roof, but also the siding on this house, and it's a lot of insulation. This insulation alone, I think, cost us like $8,000, and that was a really good deal. So, but it's gonna insulate our house, and it's gonna be really good for the wintertime and the summer.
One of the hardest parts of this entire process was moving the materials from below up onto the roof. Using a tractor and scaffolding, we got it done.
You know, these are the times when having a hand would be really nice. Either that or a taller tractor, or rent the telehandler again and throw all that insulation up here. But that costs about $2,000, so we're just gonna stick to this. I'm just glad it's not too windy today. Hopefully it stays like that. So you can probably start to see what we're gonna be doing with this. We've already got our pipe we need to go around, so we need to mark this out here and make a cut around that.
And I'm gonna have to apologize to anyone that doesn't like nails on a chalkboard, because the sounds this foam makes are extremely unpleasant.
We're gonna go ahead and do this section by section. These are just kind of sitting here right now, and the wind's picking up a little bit. So what we need to go ahead and do now, after we've put this 3.5 inch layer of polyiso, we need to come over the top with a 2-inch layer of polyiso, and then we can put our furring strips, which will actually hold these things down and keep them from blowing away. Man, it's really starting to get windy. Well, I think I jinxed myself because it did turn into a windy day. Now we're gonna screw our furring onto the top, and to do that, we have to use a 9-inch screw. These were very expensive. Let's just say we spent a pretty penny on screws for this house. Here's our furring boards, a 1x, which is technically 3/4 of an inch for air to flow through on top of this polyiso. Well, I'm pretty nervous about this, but we're gonna go ahead and go for it.
This foam insulation is what allows us to build this home without a conventional heat system. The warmth from the sun, coming through the big windows, and the heat from the masonry heater will have a difficult time escaping the envelope of the house because of our zip sheathing, but also because of just how much insulation we are putting around and inside this home. The money we spent on this insulation will pay for itself in no time, and it will last a lifetime.
Well, this section right here, I don't have any full pieces for. We're gonna have to use a bunch of my strips, which is just fine. It's not a problem, it just means more joints, but the whole top will be covered. I know I have plenty of 2-inch. This stuff, I think I was supposed to get some extra, but in the delivery, I didn't end up getting any extra. So it's like, I literally have exactly what I need, which means we gotta use the scrap pieces. All right, bottom layer done. Next top layer on its way.
If you've been watching the channel for a while, you know that I do basically all this work myself. But I want to note that before building this home, I never had any experience with building an entire house. And I definitely didn't have any experience with building an off-grid passive solar home.
All of our insulation is in. It's nice to be done with this stage. I didn't really film much of it, but it was really hard getting it from over there up onto the roof by myself. But we got it done. Let's go ahead and install our furring. So that way we can install our purlins and then our metal roofing. It is a very cold and frosty morning, and this roof is extremely slippery. Thankfully, we're on a 212 pitch, which isn't very steep, so I'm able to work it. I'm slipping a little bit, but I'm catching myself, so it should be all right. And the sun is out now, so hopefully it'll thaw out here soon. But now I'm starting to put in my purlins. You see I've got 3 rows up already. We're gonna go ahead and keep going along. Once we get our purlins up, we'll actually be able to start putting in our metal. We are completely finished with the prep work to do our metal roofing. So we've got our 2 layers of foam polyiso, we've got our furring strips which run this way, we've got our purlins which run this way, and it creates a really nice image. I like it. I mean, it's a really good look. It kind of looks like those European slate roofs, which is kind of cool, but we aren't doing that. I wish we were. That would be pretty neat. We're doing metal roofing. So, well, it's early this morning and I'm out here getting everything ready so we can start putting metal on this roof. We have a specific way we're gonna have to do this. I'm gonna get a hand today, and we've got all our roofing here. If you can see, this one is bent in a U shape. We're holding that in with ratchet straps, and the reason for that is when we lift this up, it won't buckle if it's bent like that. If we lift it up flat, it'll buckle in the middle, it'll ruin the whole sheet, and we'll waste tons and tons of money. So, and then what we're gonna do is we're gonna kind of walk it up this ladder. I'm not gonna be on the ladder, I'll be next to it, kind of lifting it up as we go. Once I'm on the top and I can grab it, we'll kind of just slide it all the way up. That's the plan, at least. I think it's gonna work. So we're just gonna have to wait and see.
These sheets of metal roofing weigh a lot more than 100 pounds. Between both Clay and I, it was a lot to handle. We would roll the metal up in a U shape to keep it from buckling, walk it over to the ladder, stair step it up the ladder while someone holds the back steady, then eventually pull it up onto the roof and repeat the process over and over and over until all 22 sheets were on the roof. With each panel we lifted onto that roof, you could feel your body getting more and more tired, and the panels felt even heavier. So once we got half up there, we started to install them. We roll out our butyl tape on the seams, position it into place, and screw it down. Installing this metal roofing felt like a nice break for Clayton and I. Mindless work to give us some time to relax before muscling the other half of the panels up. This metal roofing we chose was a little more expensive than what we used on our pole barn, but I'm really glad we went with it. You really can tell the difference in thickness and quality when installing it. We went with a high rib metal roofing, which is actually what you see on commercial roofs. It's stronger and it's made for lower slope pitches like what we have.
So the other day we got all of our metal roofing on, and it took us from sun up to sundown. We were putting on this last panel right over here in the dark. So it was a really long, hard, busy day, and it was really difficult taking them all the way over from where the shop is up over to the ladder, the scaffolding up here. That was a lot of work for 2 people, and those long panels are tough to work with. But today we're gonna go ahead and start installing our trim. We've got our gable trim, which is gonna go on that side and over on that side. And then we have our peak trim, which will go at the front. We don't have any trim at the bottom because that goes into a gutter eventually, but let's go ahead and get this trim installed and move along on this roof.
Getting a roof on this house is something I've thought about for such a long time. It's a big step and a very long journey that we've been on. Every single overhang, foam board, furring, purlin, and metal sheet is a part of a system that will provide our family with cover and comfort for many years to come.
Now that we've got both sides of our gable all trimmed up, it's time for us to go ahead and put our peak trim. This is what goes at the highest slope, and it sits on top of our gable trim. These are just little foam enclosure strips.
For years I've wanted a warm, comfortable home, one that's easy to heat and is nice to look at. This project gets us one step closer to finishing this house and one step closer to our family sitting by the fire and enjoying this winter in the comfort of our very own passive solar home. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one.